CDC shortens recommended COVID-19 isolation and quarantine time by Maggie Fox, CNN. If you like this content, subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on Monday shortened the recommended times that people should isolate when they've tested positive for COVID-19 from 10 days to 5 days if they don't have symptoms, and if they wear a mask around others for at least 5 more days. The CDC also shortened the recommended time for people to quarantine if they are exposed to the virus to a similar 5 days if they are vaccinated. People who are fully vaccinated and boosted may not need to quarantine at all, the CDC said. Given what we currently know about COVID-19 and the Omicron variant, CDC is shortening the recommended time for isolation from 10 days for people with COVID-19 to 5 days if asymptomatic, followed by 5 days of wearing a mask when around others, the CDC said in a statement. People whose symptoms are getting better may also leave their homes after 5 days, so long as their symptoms are improving, the CDC said. People who have a fever should stay home until the fever clears up, the CDC added. The change is motivated by science demonstrating that the majority of SARS-CoV-2 transmission occurs early in the course of illness, generally in the 1 to 2 days prior to onset symptoms and 2 to 3 days after. Therefore, people who test positive should isolate for 5 days and, if asymptomatic at that time, they may leave isolation if they can continue to mask for 5 days to minimize the risk of infecting others. Quarantine refers to the time people stay away from others if they are exposed to a disease but not yet testing positive or showing symptoms. CDC changed those recommendations too for people who are unvaccinated or more than 6 months out from their second mRNA dose or more than 2 months after their J&J vaccine and not yet boosted. CDC now recommends quarantine for 5 days followed by strict mask use for an additional 5 days, it said. A break for the boosted. Alternatively, if a 5-day quarantine is not feasible, it is imperative that an exposed person wear a well-fitting mask at all times when around others for 10 days after exposure, the CDC added. People who are vaccinated and boosted are usually off the hook for quarantine, CDC said. Individuals who have received their booster shot do not need to quarantine following exposure, but should wear a mask for 10 days after the exposure, it said. For all those exposed, best practice would also include a test for SARS-CoV-2 at day 5 after exposure. If symptoms occur, individuals should immediately quarantine until a negative test confirms symptoms are not attributable to COVID-19. Dr. Anthony Fauci said the changes were aimed in part at keeping society running smoothly. With the sheer volume of new cases that we are having and that we expect to continue with Omicron, one of the things that we want to be careful of is that we don't have so many people out, Fauci told CNN's Jim Acosta. We want to get people back to the jobs, particularly the essential jobs, to keep society running smoothly, said Fauci, who's director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases.